Actually, if you look at our logo, you will see TLH2, but you'll also see a Florida Panther head. That is our mascot. Her name is Tally.
Nice.
But at the bottom, you'll see our slogan. It's called Cultivating Community. And what I mean by that is in our walls, like, I want people to feel like they have a place to go to and they feel welcome and they feel like they're a part of something, not just going to work every day.
Right.
Like, it's important for me that they have something to look forward to. And, you know, most people grasp onto that. But also, like, what are we doing for our outside community? Because guess what? Who's our outside community? It's the folks that come to work there, right?
Yeah.
Their families, their, you know, community that they live in.
From Fiore Communications, it's How I Got Here, a show of inspiring stories from Tallahassee area leaders, business owners, and neighbors. All the challenges, opportunities, inspirations, the twists and turns of life that led them to where they are today. Everyone has a story worth telling, and I am really grateful that we get to bring a few of them to you. I truly have been changed by my conversations with these amazing people, and I'm confident you will be too. I'm Dave Fiore, and in this episode, I speak with Kim Price, the general manager of TLH2, Tallahassee's Amazon Robotics Sortable Fulfillment Center. The graduate of Wakulla High School and former Miss Wakulla County is a wife, mom to 3 boys, and talented musician who plays multiple instruments and has performed in Nashville. After earning an MBA from Florida State, Kim attended a campus recruiting event and was impressed with Amazon's vibe. The feeling was mutual, and she was hired within the week. She quickly ascended the ranks and was assistant general manager at an Amazon facility in Tampa when she heard about a new center coming to Tallahassee. Kim says she wanted to come home and would have taken a demotion to make it happen. She didn't have to. Today, Kim leads the state-of-the-art facility, working to make the lives of her 1,500 employees, her family, and her community better every day. We began our conversation with how Kim would describe herself and what is most important to her.
Most important thing to me is my family and raising my 3 young boys. Me and my husband have been together for 8 years. We're actually both from Wakulla County, went to the same school, really didn't know each other too well and started to know each other in college. But really the most important things are our family and raising our boys and the community that we were raised in. They're 6, 5, and 2, so they take up a lot of our time, but we have a lot of fun. But also just the work ethic and integrity that I maintain in my professional career. I've been with Amazon for 9 years, and I started at first level line of management as an area manager for fulfillment. And really didn't know what I was getting into, but it really played into, you know, in high school and so forth. Like, I was in numerous leadership positions, and I've always done well in positions like that. And Amazon really took that to the next level, I would say.
Yeah.
So I've found fulfillment in what I do and the impact that I can make. But professionally, really leveraging and utilizing Amazon's far reach to better the community that I'm in, I think is what's most important to me. But you know, bottom line is I do what I do for my family and making sure we're taking advantage of the life we have here on Earth.
Oh, awesome. All right. So you grew up in Wakulla County. So do you fit into the kind of stereotype? Do you enjoy the water, being in the woods, hunting, fishing, all the good stuff Wakulla County is known for?
I do. I sure do. I grew up, my dad hunts, my grandfather hunts, my brother, my husband. And so I grew up doing that. And while I don't like go every weekend or every weekend during hunting season, I'll go out every now and then. But we do enjoy the water. We live in St. Mark's, so we're very close to the water and have a boat down there, and we'll go out and enjoy. But it's really, you know, the peaceful life that Wakulla brings, and enjoying nature and you know, having bonfires, and we love all that kind of stuff.
All right, so you mentioned it a little bit, but tell us about your family growing up, your parents, your siblings. What was your family life like as a young kid?
Yeah, so I am the youngest of 3. if you asked my brother and sister, they would probably tell you I got to do everything before they got to do. But, you know,
'Cause you're the baby. That's how it goes, right?
Exactly. My brother is 6 years older than I am. My sister is 3 years older than I am. We're all pretty close. I would say I was always kind of like the peacemaker out of everyone and wanted everyone to get along and things like that. But my brother actually lives in Lakeland, so he's successful in the role that he's in. My sister works for the city of Tallahassee. And then my mom worked for the Supreme Court for years, and she just recently retired, but was in the HR department there. And then my dad is from Wakulla. His family is rooted there. My great-grandfather was a city commissioner for St. Mark's for 22 years and was mayor for 4 back in the day.
Yeah.
But very, very deep family roots on his end in the county. But he works at St. Mark's Powder. So he's been there, 20 years almost, I would say. But growing up, like, we had rules. You know, my mom was pretty strict, but in a good way. It wasn't a bad thing. I thank her for that.
Just
honestly.
high expectations
High
kind
expectations,
of thing? Yeah.
like good grades. We pretty much all were either, you know, straight A students or AB honor roll. My grandparents lived right across the field from us. There's some Wakulla for you.
Yeah, for sure.
And we would stay. We went to daycare like a very short time, but like after school, we would stay with them because we were right across the street. And so, you know, that family life started, you know, really early and being near family. And my grandpa farmed, and he had a farm. Not a farm, but a garden, and we would garden with him. And my grandmother made me start taking piano lessons when I was 7. That's another love of mine is music.
Did you like it at the time?
Part of it. I enjoyed playing. I hated the theory portion and practicing, which every kid does. But I took piano lessons. I started when I was 7, and I didn't quit till I was like either a junior or a senior in high school.
Do you still play?
I do. I write music, and I don't have a lot of time for it now.
Yeah.
But
what kind of music do you write?
All kinds. Like, it's mostly based in like country style. But I play several different instruments and sing and all that fun stuff. So that's kind of when I have time to do it,
So do you do that publicly anywhere? Like in the corner of a restaurant or a bar or something?
I have before.
Yeah.
I actually went to Nashville and played at a few bars up
there.
Wow. Yeah, it was like for a songwriting conference. And my uncle actually was in a band years and years ago. I mean, he knows how to produce music. So I went to his house in Savannah, and we made an album together, which was very good memories of that. This was back in college.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy. I played for my church, like growing up, and and youth, and the music ministry there. So that was really nice. But growing up, like, we were outside a lot. I loved. I don't know if I would call myself a tomboy, but I was always outside, like in the dirt with dogs, because my dad had hunting dogs, and I would always smell like dogs.
Do you have any dream of pursuing music at any point later on? Is it kind of on the shelf a little bit, or what?
I had dreams of that probably when I was like right out of high school, and realized very quickly it was a tough industry. And so I didn't want it to be something where, it felt like work. I wanted it to be something I really had fun at. And it just didn't seem like, I was very results driven, probably why I'm at Amazon. But, it would have taken, there's no guarantee in music, I guess.
For sure.
Yeah. So I'm very risk averse at times. So it was a little risky for me, but I enjoy it.
Good. Did you have the same group of friends growing up, and are you still friends with them? It's kind of classic small town, right? And living here, is that your experience?
So I have a small group of friends.
Okay.
I don't have a ton of friends, but that's okay. I like it that way. Close friends, I would say. I have a lot of, friends and acquaintances and such, but my 2 best friends, one of them I've known since I was 4, and the other one, we became really close, like in high school, like early high school. And us 3 together, we actually just had a girls' weekend. The other week we went down to Apalachicola and shopped and things. One of them lives in Tampa and the other one's here. So those 2 girls are like my sisters, basically. And we've been friends since then. But the friends I grew up with, like, a lot of them are still here. So we'll see each other, and I've, made new friends. My husband's family is large. He has one brother, but his mom and dad both had a lot of brothers and sisters. But his brother is very social, so he knows a lot of people, and we've made some friends through him as well that are close now. But
another thing I know about Wakulla County is there are a lot of cousins involved. Right?
Oh yes, I mean you could probably I feel like my two best friends, we've researched it backward, we're probably related somehow.
Yeah.
And when I, started dating my husband, I was like, your family's not from here, right? And he's like, nah, we're from Jackson. Just wanted to be sure. So we avoided that. But no, we're all there's a lot of, large name families down there. And a lot of people are, kin to each other, or cousins or what have you. So
for sure. All right. So you graduated from Wakulla High School. You already said that you were a good student, right?
Yes.
You were motivated to make good grades.
Uh-huh.
So what kind of activities were you involved with? What did you enjoy doing as a high school student?
Oh, man. Lots of things. Probably too much. So I was early on, even starting in middle school, I always liked leadership positions. So my senior year of high school, I was class president. I was also in student government, National Honor Society. I was the captain of the cheerleading squad. What else? I was on honor court, prom court, homecoming court.
That is a lot.
All of the things. So it was always a lot, but I truly enjoyed it and had a ton of fun doing it. And I like to stay, I like to keep my mind busy and, developing and always learning something new. That's how I've, creating things. That's how I, find fulfillment. I do have an analytical side, but I also have a creative side that I like to stretch sometimes. And that's where I really feel like myself.
Yeah.
And, I was also in the church band during that time. So we always had something going on.
Yeah. So it sounds like you said, a combination of the student leadership stuff, the social piece, and some creative kind of. Was it your goal to try to get as much out of high school as you could, or did it all just kind of happen kind of organically?
Yeah, I think kind of both, a combination of both. I would say I expect a lot from myself. And I also wanted to make my parents happy of what I did and proud, and my family proud of what I accomplished. So you typically sought out those things, but I would say a lot of the things were naturally given to me. I don't know. I don't know if it's a part of just how my character was, or it just kind of felt right.
Right. Yeah. Opportunities presented themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So after you graduated, you went to Florida State.
I did.
Was that an eady decision for you? Did you think about going to other places, or was it always FSU?
It's the only place I applied.
Really?
I put my eggs all in one basket, but I had good confidence I would get in. No, that's the only place I wanted to go. And I think college was a little bit different for me than high school. I did a lot in high school, and in college I kind of took a step back to give myself some space and also start the workforce. Yeah, no, I always wanted. I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to go to Florida State. That was always, my brother went there. He was the first person in our family to graduate from college, our immediate family. Okay. So, I trusted my brother a lot with just life advice and, kind of help guiding me. So it just seemed natural that I would go there where he went. So
you majored in political science, right?
I did.
Were you interested in politics, or how did you end up with that major?
I was interested in law school. I actually worked my second job. My first job, I was selling skincare and makeup at a local business. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing that because I also enjoy that.
So was that retail, try stuff on people's faces you see in the mall and stuff?
It was a small business,
right.
And I knew the owner through a friend through high school, and she let me get a job there. And it was, selling makeup and trying new things and skincare. So it was
kind of a little creative, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I love doing makeup. So that's I have way too many eye palettes, but that's another day.
I'm sorry. I can't ask you a lot of questions about that.
But where was I? Okay, so political science.
Yeah.
So my mom worked for the Supreme Court. My grandmother, who just recently passed away, but she was a judicial assistant for, years and years and years for local judges here. And so I kind of grew up around that environment. And, she's like, well, you can always become an attorney. I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. So I got a job at a personal injury firm here. It was actually, at the time, Eubanks, Barrick, Fasek, and Brooks, and it's since kind of changed names. But I took intakes, called people calling
So
and
what does that
such.
mean?
So
Intake, like if people think they have a case?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I kind of
Screened them?
screened them, got down, information, and then would send it up to the paralegals and such to sort through. But it was my second job, like first month in the workforce. And I also worked at the mediation office at the courthouse here in Leon County and enjoyed the people I worked with. I just felt like law wasn't for me. My best friend, one of the friends I mentioned earlier, Lauren, she went to law school and we were roommates. And so I kind of saw what she was going through and I was like, oh, I don't know if this is for me. So I decided to not go to law school and get my MBA instead and pursue kind of a business side of things.
Right. So I was going to ask that. So you ended up with the MBA and that was because you saw yourself more interested in the business side of things?
Yes. And I just didn't see a path forward with law. It just didn't feel right. And I don't know, it didn't sit well with me. Not well with me. It just didn't seem like that's
just
the
wasn't
path
for
I
you.
wanted. Yeah. And I'm like, I think I need to explore some. And, part of me was, well, political science kind of limits, the possibilities out there. Looking back, like I could have done anything. But I was like, I really want to get my master's. I'll be the first one in my family to get a master's degree ever. So I'm like, let's do this. So FSU has an accelerated program that's like over a year. And I'm like, I can do that for a year. And I did and had a lot of fun. There was a group of like 30 of us that went through the program together. And we had some really cool teachers, went on some cool trips. I went to South Korea.
Oh, wow.
On with the school and had some really cool experiences there. So.
Okay. So while you were in school with the MBA, did you have any specific career goals in mind? Did you kind of have any inkling of where your career might take you when you finished?
To be truthful, no. I don't know if I just didn't know what all was out there, to be honest. Like, there's a limitation on jobs, like types of jobs you can get. Even in Tallahassee, you could say that to a point.
Yeah.
So I really didn't know all of what was out there. I only knew like what my family did and like some of what my friends did. And, I thought maybe finance, maybe like consulting. I didn't really know, but I knew I loved leadership roles and I knew I loved people and, influencing, people to find their potential and things like that. That came easy to me. And I really didn't know exactly what I was doing. So my MBA was pretty broad. On some of the classes I took, like economics and statistics and things like that, behavioral science. And I enjoyed that piece of it because I like that people side of things. But no, I really didn't know. It kind of fell in my lap.
Okay. So when you finish your degree, the next step is Amazon, right? So how did you get initially connected to Amazon?
Yeah. Luck, I guess. I don't know. It was all in God's timing. Well, at colleges, they have recruiting events. And I'm like, I should probably go to one. I'm almost about to graduate.
Might be a good idea.
And another thing about me, I perform really well under pressure.
Okay.
Like one of my faults is like procrastinating on things. But I always tell people like I perform my best when I'm under a lot of pressure. So, it's for a reason. That's what I like to tell people.
Sure.
But anyway, so I'm like, I should probably go like try to find a job. And went to a recruiting event, went around to a couple of places and like, yeah, like cool. And then Amazon was in a room and I was like, well, I've heard about them. I've ordered some things. Let me go look. And they were very different than most of the companies there, like business attire, suits, ties, what have you. And Amazon rolls up like jeans, t-shirts. And I'm like, this is interesting.
More of a Google feel, probably, right?
Yeah. And so I went in and listened to their presentation, and they were different. They were a little different than what I was expecting, but I liked it. I liked, how they like to have fun and, how they liked outside of the box ideas and, inventing. And so I was like, okay, let's give this a whirl. So I talked to the recruiter, and that Friday, she's like, we talked for a little bit. She's like, let's get you an interview. I'm like, cool. So that Friday I got an interview and like that next week I had an offer. So it happened quickly. I had to go down to Orlando for the in-person interview. And it's funny because the person that I interviewed with, I later we worked together later on in life when I moved back down to Florida, but it was very quick. But it felt right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So excited. And you're moving to Tennessee, right, for this first job?
Yes.
So that's a big adjustment.
It is.
Right?
Yeah. So it was like Amazon even back, I mean, I started Amazon in 2015, and even it's changed even so much even from then. So the way the recruiting process works is you kind of, at that level, you kind of highlight the states that you want to be in. And depending on where they have an opening, that's where they offer you. So my original offer was for Tampa in Florida, but then they came back like, I don't know, a week later and was like, actually, like we're overfilled for whatever reason. Here's your other options. And one of them was Tennessee, right outside of Nashville. And I was like, well,
It's not a bad place.
not a bad place. I
Yeah.
love music. Like that would be cool.
Yeah.
Knowing I probably wouldn't be there forever, but right out of college, like not tied down. Like me and my husband were at the time engaged. So that was a bit of we had to figure that out, but moved, and it was 20, 30 minutes outside of Nashville at a fulfillment center. And I really didn't know what to expect. Like I had some training that I had to go to in Phoenix and leadership training.
So what was the job that they hired you for?
Yeah, the role was area manager, and you will be working in fulfillment. And so I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah, what is that?
And they kind of explained, like, you'll have associates reporting to you, but you're packing boxes and managing that process. I'm like, leading people, like, I can do that. Like, cool. What I didn't realize is when you started Amazon, you got a lot of people reporting to you, like a couple hundred. And it's very different now, but out of college,
That's a lot.
it's a lot, right? So it's kind of like a culture shock. But the first 3 months, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I'm like, don't ask me any questions because I don't even know what this tool is. Amazon has a lot of tools, like a lot of metrics, a lot of tools.
Right.
But finally, by like month 4, I was like, okay, like I feel like I know what I'm doing now, and I feel confident in the role. And enjoyed that building, enjoyed the team. Just didn't like living in the snow. I was like,
so you're like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I was like, let's get down to Florida. And
All right.
so, but at the time, my husband had moved. Well, my fiance at the time had moved to Tennessee with me. He had already been in the workforce because he graduated with his undergrad from Florida State. He has his engineering degree in civil engineering. But he found a company up there to work for to use his degree. And we both worked up there. We had gotten married while we lived up there. Got married here in Tallahassee at Bradley's Pond, but lived there. And, we felt like we need to be closer to family. Like eventually we want to have kids of our own. And so I wasn't like immediately move, but I started the conversation with my leaders, and they were very supportive. So,
and they got you back down to Tampa.
They did. It was a small network at the time, but my leaders there were phenomenal, and I still talk to them.
Right. So over the next 6 years, kind of including that time, you start working your way up the career ladder and changing jobs and getting promoted at a pretty quick pace.
Yeah.
Of course, ending up here as general manager in Tallahassee. So we'll get to that we'll get to Tallahassee in a minute. But talk a little bit about that path and moving up and kind of, what it was taking to get the promotions and how that process worked and what you were learning during that process and being more part of the Amazon culture and just that. It seems like you kind of bought in and really love what you're doing and wanted to work your way up. So what was that like?
Yeah, I'll start by saying like Amazon is a very fast moving company. We make changes quickly. We, execute like different change initiatives quickly. So we have that at our hand. The other thing that I feel like Amazon does a really good job at is teaching leadership principles. Like we have our own leadership principles, and that's like the core of how we guide ourselves in like our daily decisions and what our goals are and such. And so I liked that. I liked some of them really like came naturally. Like one of them is earn trust of others. Like that was very natural for me. One that didn't come naturally for me was disagree and commit. I don't like confrontation. Like it's something I avoid. Like I told you before, I'm kind of like the peacemaker and I want everyone to get along and have fun.
But talk about that for a second. As a leader, you can't always do that, right? You have to confront a situation and deal with it.
Exactly.
So how did you learn how to do that?
Yeah, we have strengths and opportunities. That's how we kind of talk through them at Amazon. And
so that was an opportunity.
Opportunity was for me was disagree and commit. Part of it is, if you're managing 200 people, like there's going to be disagreements and there's going to be things that not everyone agrees with. And even, upwards to leadership, like I don't agree with this initiative or I don't agree with how we do things, even the process. Like this makes no sense. And there's going to be people that push back, like, no, like, this is how we've always done it. Like, that doesn't matter. Like, there's a better way. And having tough conversations, I think, was my biggest challenge. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned most from Amazon is if someone comes up to you and tells you in a development conversation, like, Kim, like, you're doing a great job. Like, you just keep doing what you're doing. Like, cool, but that doesn't help me at all. What helps me is, yes, recognize where my strengths are, but tell me like where I'm missing. And I wasn't with my first boss for very long. She just kind of helped me through like learning what Amazon was. But one of my bosses that I had in Tampa, she really spent time, Kim, like, this is where you do well, but this is where we got to work on you. And it was sort of a shock to the system because I wasn't used to getting like critical feedback, constructive feedback, I would say.
But somebody telling you weren't necessarily great at something.
Yes. Was like, okay, got to work on that. But I learned quickly that you can create actions and plans to address those and, not fix the problem. It's not a problem. It's more of develop yourself and your skills to be able to make that a strength. And, everyone's not going to have the same level of strengths in all of the leadership principles. That's not the goal, but to leverage what you have and to work through, maybe where you're lacking a little bit.
And we'll be right back. How I Got Here is sponsored by Barano Heating and Air Conditioning in Tallahassee. I've been friends with Patrick Barano since we met in a chamber leads group about 15 years ago. I'll admit that I pursued him pretty hard to be his marketing firm and eventually won him over. And the reason I wanted to work with him is that I was already a customer and I knew what kind of company he and his father before him had built. He cares about his customers, he cares about his team, and he cares about this community. I've experienced Barano Heating and Air when they installed a complete system replacement a few years ago, and I enjoy peace of mind and same-day service with my Total Comfort Service Agreement. I've also been behind the scenes at their office and seen firsthand the true character of this company. And that's why we're so proud to represent them. To learn more or to schedule an appointment online anytime, visit baranoac.com. They really always will be there for you. And now back to the show.
With my transition to Tampa, it was actually a promotion as well. So at Amazon, like, we have like levels, if you will. And the area manager role is the first level of like salaried leadership manager. And you start off, if you're a college hire, you start off as a level 4. Well, there's also a level 5 area manager, and you can work your way to that. You can also hire in as a 5 industry experience, things like that. So that was my first promotion with that transfer. I became an L5 area manager. But with it, I started a whole new business. Like, within fulfillment, there's different business lines. The first site I worked at was called non-sort. So it's large items. There's no robots. It's just aisles and aisles of product. I walked a lot.
Yeah.
I got my steps in up there.
For sure.
And then I transitioned to an Amazon robotics site, sortable. So small items, robots. You're not walking down aisles and aisles. It's just the building is a lot bigger and holds more product. And you've got all this automation that I was not used to. So with that, I started that site. But also the role I was put in was very unique. I was actually part of the quality department, not like running a actual operations department, but running the quality of the building. So there was 2 of us, my boss and then me. And I didn't know anything about Amazon robotics. Like, there's a lot of metrics that we track, like I mentioned earlier, and I had to learn all of those things. So I had to learn very quickly because I was responsible for making sure that that building's quality was good. And at the time, we had a lot of opportunity, that building. I think a cool fact, though, I'll just throw out there. When I started that building, it's called TPA1. I was there for 7 years, so I love that site. It was one of 6 Amazon robotic sortable buildings in North America. Now there's over 90.
Wow.
So
yeah.
At that time, I was pregnant with my first baby and in my maternity leave. And right before I left on maternity leave, I got promoted to my operations manager role, which is just a leader over area managers. So I had 4 or 5 AMs reporting to myself. So that's the first leader of leader positions I had. And then was super excited about that. and then came back as there was a stint before I got promoted where I went back into operations and kind of, like not proved myself, but like showed that I could run an actual operations and not just do quality, and had a lot of success with having some really good teams doing it together. And then came back as the actual one quality leader for the building, and loved that role. It was super cool. And I think that's honestly, like I tell young leaders in Amazon, like find some roles where you can take a step back and think strategically, because when you're in operations, like especially at an AM level, like you are just go get stuff done right here, right now. Yeah. And it's hard to take a step back because you have, 50 people waiting on you. But that role allowed me to take a step back and really understand like what the goals were for Amazon. Not the site, yes, but also like how Amazon saw things and what the future looks like. That was probably my favorite role I ever had.
That's a good reminder for anybody in leadership to step back, and you get so busy in the grind of everything that you can lose sight of the bigger goals. We're going to get to TLH2, which is your facility, in a second. But before that, you mentioned your husband, Mark, and getting married and starting to have children. So you said you were not high school sweethearts.
Nope.
But how did you interact? I mean, you were the captain of the cheerleaders, and he was an athlete, right?
Yeah, he played baseball.
So you had to have known each other. I know you don't cheer at baseball games, but you had to have intersected. Were you close in age?
So fun fact, I was not allowed to date until I was a senior in high school. So, I had crushes and such, but that was a rule my mom had. And, her philosophy was, I want to prevent you from distractions and from unnecessary broken hearts.
Okay, so I don't want to cause any family problems. But did you stick to the rule?
I did.
Okay.
And a lot of my friends, like, truthfully, like, a lot of my friends were like, why don't you just like do it behind her back? I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I couldn't live with myself. My conscience would eat me alive.
So senior year, you're dating now, right? Or at least you're open to the idea of it.
Yeah. Funny story. I did date someone in my senior year in high school, but it only lasted a short while just because it just didn't feel right. And I was very busy. So I had a lot to do, and I just felt like this is taking up too much time. But great guy, but just didn't feel right. So I didn't really date in high school. And then Mark, my husband, now he was in a grade lower than me. I'm actually 8 months older than him, which he reminds me constantly, which is his character. But I knew him. We weren't like close or anything like that. He went to Florida State, and that's where we like started hanging out. He's actually, one of my best friends, Amanda, she's a grade lower than me too. But we grew up together, and they were close. They were good friends. And in college, that's when we kind of started all hanging out together. And he had a serious girlfriend in high school, so it wasn't really, an option, I guess. But I really didn't know him, knew of him. He was funny. He was very social. It's funny because in both of our senior years, we were both voted best all around. So
wow,
match made. There you go.
Yeah, I guess so.
But we started hanging out in college, and that's when we kind of hit it off there. So
okay,
yeah.
And so you got married during that transition of Tennessee and all that happening.
Yeah, I started Amazon in 2015, in June of 2015. So I just celebrated 9 years, and then got married in January of 2016.
Okay. And he owns his own roofing company now, right?
He does.
Ponderosa Roofing.
He does. He owns Ponderosa Roofing. He does a lot of things. And roofing, he's got some folks in Panama City doing some docks. He's done a few spec homes in Wakulla. So he's a smart dude.
Yeah.
He is. He's very intelligent. Having family here is extremely helpful, and we are very blessed to have grandparents for the kids, and my sister helps a lot. Bless her. She has a son of her own, and they are all four like brothers. Like they're so funny. But we have a good time together. So
that's awesome. All right, so I want an honest answer for this one. You mentioned you have 3 boys, 6 and under.
Yes.
So which is harder to keep up with, your 1,500 Amazon employees or your 3 sons?
This will shock you, but my youngest son,
just
the
him.
one, yes. That boy is, and I keep telling myself, like, it'll be good in the long term. It'll be good in the long term.
He's energetic.
He is hard-headed, man. He's stubborn. If he wants,
and he's 2, right?
Yes, he is 2. And it's funny being obviously raised with 2 older brothers. Like you get tough quick,
real quick.
And he's just strong. He's a large child. He is large for 2 years old. But he knows what he wants, and he will do everything in his power to get it. And he is by far my hardest child. But
so you're looking ways to identify those opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And funnel them into something positive.
Yes. We're going to talk about leadership principles with you, Phoenix. Oh man, no, he's a lot of fun. My boys are a lot of fun. But they are like any kids. Like they have a lot of energy, especially being boys. Like, oh my goodness. But there's different challenges with either, right?
Sure. So when you found out Amazon was building a facility in Tallahassee, what were your first thoughts? How did you go about that? Did you say, me, send me there? Or
just about, yeah.
How did that work?
And I've always told my leaders, my direct leaders, and they always knew, like I said, I would never really leave Tampa unless we build something in Tallahassee or very close by. And I always thought that we would never do that. Just looking at like where we would build, the expansion plans, all those things. And then we found out, and they always knew I'm from here. Like this is where my family is. So I actually found out before my leader did about the site being built. And I go in his office and I'm like, hey, I'm giving you like 2 years notice. We're building in Tallahassee and I want that site. I'm like, I don't care what capacity I go in. Like, I think at the time I was a senior ops, just maybe transitioning to the AGM role. I said, I don't care. Like, I'll take a demotion if I need to, which I knew probably wasn't going to be the case, but I want that site.
Yeah.
And so we worked on it. We started working on it early, and there's people that need to trust in you and, advocate for you to be that person to lead the site. And luckily, I knew one of our vice presidents that worked for Amazon. He lived in Tampa, and, he would come by the site a lot and visit, and enjoyed seeing some of the things that we did at that site. So got some good interactions with him, and, he's ultimately the person that like checks if like that person can go be a GM at a site. So there's, qualifications that you have to have, and you have to have good deliver results. And so that all worked out, and it worked out. I didn't know for a while if I was going to go as like the AGM or the GM, but it all timing wise worked out where I could get the GM position.
That's great. And I imagine there's a little extra opportunity because you're launching a brand new facility, and this is one of the most high tech. This is kind of a new era of fulfillment center, right, for Amazon. So it's TLH2 because there is a small facility somewhere here that has existed before.
Funny story. I was like, why aren't we 1? And I was distraught. No, I'm just kidding. I was like, okay, I have to find out like what 1 is. So we did. And it was like a locker pickup at like a school. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
But that's okay. No, it's TLH2, and we name our fulfillment centers based on like the airport code for the surrounding areas. So, and then number them. So we are TLH2.
Okay. And it is an Amazon Robotics Sortment Fulfillment Center.
Yeah,
right?
sortable fulfillment center.
Sortable.
Yeah.
That's even what I have on here. Amazon Robotics Sortable Fulfillment Center. Employs 1,500 team members, can hold up to 40 million units of inventory, and is over 2.5 million square feet across 5 floors, right? So I think everybody's interested, if they don't know, just kind of what actually happens there and how does it fit into the big Amazon picture. You mentioned it a little bit that it doesn't go straight from there to our house, but what is really going on there and how does that fit in?
So Amazon Robotics Sortable. So sortable sites is, we call it AR, like in the Amazon terms, it's just AR. That's where most of the product circulates. We do have like other like AMXL, which is like extra large items. We've got non-sort, which are the little bit larger items like, a lawnmower or whatever. But sortable is where most of the product is, toothpaste, deodorant, keychains, whatever. Anything that's smaller than like 24 inches. And that's where most of the product that you order come from. So obviously, Amazon Robotics AR has expanded quite a bit in the course of the last 8 years because of the need to supply and demand. But fulfillment is all about housing the inventory on site and fulfilling your order. So getting it into the box where it's going to be delivered to you. And that's basically it. I mean, it's straightforward. Like some days I'm like, Kim, you're just packing boxes. Like this is going to be okay. But we house the inventory so it can be sold on Prime or Amazon, and we pack it and send it out to either delivery stations, sort centers, to eventually make its way onto a delivery van or car or flex driver. Or
Those are called last mile facilities,
yes.
The ones they go to?
The delivery stations are called last mile because we are first mile in the whole process because all the product comes from our sites.
Right. How long have you been there now? How long has it been open?
We launched in July of last year. So
okay.
Coming up on
so
a
right
year.
on a year.
Yeah.
So how's it going?
Yeah. It's been a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Launching a building is always difficult. It always has different challenges. You will never predict all of the challenges that you have. Like we spend a lot of time on launch prep, looking at building. We've launched a lot of buildings in the past few years. So, but there's always lessons learned from other buildings, and there's mechanisms we have in place to prevent maybe those specific challenges again. But there's always different things. You never really can predict what you'll find, whether it be, issues with the building or maybe, there's 10 miles of conveyance in that site. So you could imagine all of the, we have little photo eyes where it reads, it senses the packages going by, and there's thousands of those. Tallahassee was unique workforce-wise because we didn't have a lot of veteran transfers. Like when I say veteran, I mean like people that have worked for Amazon before. We don't really have a lot of surrounding sites around us, like closest one is in Jacksonville. And
that's true of everything in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
There isn't anything big, close.
Yeah.
Right.
And so like in Tampa, when that site launched, we had a sister site 30 minutes down the road. So we had a lot of transfers over and people that knew what they were doing. And Tallahassee was unique, and most of our workforce was brand new to Amazon. So obviously you have learning curves you have to get through. And
a unique challenge for you.
Yeah. And Amazon's very peculiar in the way that we do things, process-wise. Like I said, a lot of metrics to track.
Yeah.
So that was obviously a challenge, understanding we have a lot of, associates right out of college or right out of high school even that have never held a job before. So kind of teaching them the ways of being a responsible adult and showing up to
life
work.
skills, right?
Just life skills.
Yeah.
And we've really leaned into that area for our community and the folks that we have at the site, because that's one of the biggest needs that I'm seeing. So,
and pulling from zip codes that are underserved and deal with poverty at higher levels in other parts of town. So but they're far away too, right? So that presents some challenges as well.
Yep, that is. And I've seen so many folks come in, and there's really not I don't want to sound rude, but there's not a lot of jobs like this in Tallahassee that you don't have to have a degree. Like you just pass your background check, and as long as everything's runs out with that, like you're cool, like you can work. And we're usually always hiring. Like there's always opportunities. And so there's folks that have, and we have really good benefits. So a lot of folks that have taken full advantage of, the opportunities that they have. And we've promoted a lot of people in the community already because they've came in and really crushed it and, said, I want to work for Amazon. And really work and, build my career here. So, there's a lot of good success stories out there for folks that have taken advantage of that.
What's your favorite part of the job so far here?
I think building the team, like the leadership team, but also like the culture at the building. Like it's always a struggle to establish culture, especially in a launch environment, because like as a leader, your priorities are like making sure the building runs and like getting customers their order, because that's Amazon is customer obsessed. We will do just about anything to get, your package. But other than that, like what's important to me as a leader, which I was able to do a little bit in Tampa because my leader at the time when I was AGM, like we've known each other for years, and he's one of like my best work friends, and we were able to build some cool stuff. But build it from the ground up is my favorite part. It's also one of the most difficult, but at the end of the day, it's the most rewarding. So, establishing a building where we have one of the highest percentages of career choice participants in Amazon, like in the Southeast region, is like, I'm very proud of that because, that's me trying to really build the culture of like, this is long-term, like we want you to succeed.
And what does
long-term.
career choice mean?
So career choice is the program that Amazon has that pays for your tuition. So it was very unique and amazing that at our grand opening, we had all three presidents at our grand opening for TCC and FSU and FAMU there. And we got to announce partnerships with all three. Like that's not the norm. So people can go back to college and get their degree and you don't even have to stay at Amazon. Like you can go be a nurse or whatever you want. But Amazon will pay for your degree. So we've really pushing enrollment and getting people to go back to school and learn those life skills and get their degree so they can, better their future is what I'm pretty proud of. And I love that. I love that area.
All right, one last Amazon-related question.
Sure.
I know you have a commitment to embracing and getting involved in the community by serving on boards and working with nonprofits. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Fun fact, kind of to rewind a little bit, we call them STLs. They're called single-threaded leaders, but basically like the owner for a project for all of AR, like East Coast of the United States or North America. I was the owner for community engagement for all of AR. So over like 30-something sites and launching with the team's help, like launching community engagement. Like back in the day, like we didn't go volunteer as teams. We would donate, but it wasn't a ton. And, I was given the responsibility a couple of years ago to really start launching that and fell in love with it. Like I enjoyed it. Like it felt good. We were able to give back to the community. I saw the impact that we could make. And so I wanted to bring that to Tallahassee because that meant a lot to me in Tampa. And the site in Tampa that I was at, we were like top 5 in all of NA, like including like every site, like all of the sites, like hundreds of sites in like community engagement hours. And so it was very important for me to do that. And it's a challenge launching that when you're launching a building because you have obviously competing priorities. But I didn't really care. I wanted to start it from the beginning because Tallahassee obviously means a lot to me and the surrounding county, and it's important. So actually, if you look at our logo, you will see TLH2, but you'll also see a Florida Panther head. That is our mascot. Her name is Tally.
Nice.
But at the bottom, you'll see our slogan. It's called Cultivating Community. And what I mean by that is it's in our walls. Like I want people to feel like they have a place to go to and they feel welcome and they feel like they're a part of something, not just going to work every day.
Right.
Like it's important for me that they have something to look forward to. And, most people grasp onto that. But also like, what are we doing for our outside community? Because guess what? Who's our outside community? It's the folks that come to work there, right? Yeah. Their families, their, community that they live in. So I wanted to do that really from the very beginning. And I joined the board of directors for United Way. We actually partnered with them early on and did some volunteering and some donations and stuff with them. And Bernice, the CEO, she quickly, she had some connections with some of our folks in Miami and quickly made that connection. But, I require is like a hard word, but I make the senior team go volunteer once a month together. And it's, a good bonding moment, but also like, we can get very busy and put off things like that. But to me, it's important that we show that, no, this is important, what we're doing. And so we go and do that once a month. And we go to like Second Harvest and volunteer. But we also donate a lot from the site. If I'll give you an example. If you have like a 6-pack of something, if it's damaged out, one's damaged or two's damaged, I can't sell that product as a 6-pack, but I can donate it because they're perfectly fine, whatever. Yeah. So we donate a lot to different charities in the area, and I think we're almost like at 500,000 already.
Wow!
So we get a product
it's no
out
small
there.
Thing.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes I'm at Second Harvest and like I'm sorting throughout a product. I'm like, this came from our site because I can see like the unique identifiers.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is from us, so that's cool. Like I said, it all goes back to, it's not just about our outside community; it's also about our inside community and the walls. And showing, people that are new to Amazon, like, it's not just about like getting packages out the door. Yes, we are customer obsessed, but it's also about like what Amazon can do for you, and how it can help you, resources that we have, things like that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, I would say.
Yeah. Kim, 2 final questions, and I'll let you go. First one, looking back, what is the one thing or person that changed or altered the trajectory of your life to this point?
My mom was probably the single person that influenced me the most growing up. I could say my husband in certain times, but I think early on my mom was always like my biggest cheerleader. And from the very young, I remember like her telling me like, no, like you are going to do big things. You're going to go do whatever you want. Like I will support you in whatever I can. She driving me to dance lessons and whatever lessons and, all of that stuff. And, life wasn't always easy for her, like with 3 young kids and so on and so forth. But she by far was always a supporter. And, when maybe I didn't make the best grades or whatever, like it wasn't like, I cannot believe you did this, but it was like, hey, let's talk about it. So I think I got my my want to do more or to like achieve from her, I think, because she put so much like, confidence in me that I could. So I think I would be amiss to say like she's probably the one person that influenced me early on. But, there's a lot of people that have impacted me, I think. But I think my husband, he and I are not a couple that are like, oh, honey, like you did such a he encouraged me, sure, but like he also challenges me.
And final question.
Okay.
The podcast is named How I Got Here.
Yeah.
So we've talked about how you got to this point in your life.
Yeah.
Where do you think here might be for you in 3 to 5 years from now?
Sure. I will probably more than likely still be with Amazon. Being GM of TLH2, probably not in 3 to 5 years. The way Amazon like grows leaders and wants them to do big things, I would probably see myself either in a regional director role over a few sites or maybe on like leading a team for like, I would love to be like in the DEI space, so diversity, equity, inclusion. And that's kind of the area that, the community side and things like that, which is what I really lean towards. But yeah, I don't see myself as the GM for TLH2 in 3 to 5 years. I could be. I don't know. I could, just be happy in my position there. But I, inherently, I want to do bigger and better things for the most part. But right now, I'm content with where I am, and I have at least a couple more years here. But I do not want to move. We are here. We're here for the long term. So there's always new opportunities coming up, like in so many different business lines. We have Audible, we have all kinds of stuff, IT, like there's a lot of different things that I could get my hands in if I wanted to. So it's kind of unknown, but definitely see, moving on to something else outside of TLH2, just because, that's what we do at Amazon. We want you to do more things.
Thanks for listening to the show. You can subscribe at Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave us a review. It really does make a difference. Thanks to my amazing staff at Fiore Communications, who pick up the slack while I'm working on these podcasts, and to Troy Bloom for composing our theme music. You can hear more of Troy's creations on Facebook and Instagram at Troy Bloom Music. To connect with the podcast or suggest a future guest, follow us on social media or email us at podcast@fiorecommunications.com.